So what if India could actually grab its carbon emissions right at the source, before they ever hit the atmosphere? Well, it seems the Indian government is betting big that it can. We're talking about a massive new investment that's set to completely reshape the country's biggest industries and its climate future.
And this is the number that really got everyone talking in the last budget. 20,000 crore rupees. I mean, that is a huge figure. So you have to ask, where is all this money going? Well, it's all being poured into a critical set of technologies designed to capture carbon, known collectively as CCUS.
Okay, so what in the world is CCUS? You're going to hear this acronym a lot. It stands for Carbon Capture, Utilization, and Storage. And trust me, it's absolutely essential if you want to understand India's long-term strategy for tackling climate change.
At its heart, CCUS is really a collection of different technologies that all do one main thing. They grab the carbon dioxide that's produced by big industrial plants, and they do it before it can escape and get into the atmosphere. Simple as that.
It basically works in 3 steps. First, you've got to capture the CO2. Just picture a giant filter on the smokestack of a steel mill, sifting out the carbon dioxide from everything else. Then, step 2, you transport it. That captured CO2 gets compressed and usually sent through pipelines. And finally, you either utilize it, that means turning it into something useful like chemicals or even fuel, or you store it, locking it away safely deep underground for good.
So that's the what. But honestly, the bigger and more important question is the why. Why is this technology so incredibly critical for India, right now, that's getting this kind of massive investment? Well, the answer really comes down to the sheer scale of the climate challenge we're all facing.
Just look at this slide. It shows you the staggering problem we're up against. Globally, humanity pumps out nearly 40 billion tons of CO2 every single year. And how much do we capture with our current projects? A tiny fraction, less than 0.5% of that total. It just shows you this massive, massive gap that we have to close, and fast.
And for India, closing that gap isn't just a nice idea, it's a promise. It's directly tied to the country's major commitment, which was made at the Glasgow Climate Conference, to become a net zero economy by the year 2070. And let's be clear, hitting that target is pretty much impossible without figuring out how to deal with emissions from our core industries.
And you know, this is where things get really tricky. For a lot of industries, yeah, you can cut emissions just by switching to solar or wind power. But for these so-called hard-to-abate sectors, we're talking about giants like steel and cement, it is not that simple. A huge amount of their emissions doesn't even come from burning fuel for energy. It's an unavoidable part of the chemical reaction that makes the product in the first place. And that, right there, is the crucial point. For the industries that are literally the backbone of India's growth, just switching to green power isn't going to cut it. Capturing the carbon right at the source, that makes CCUS not just some nice option on a list, but an absolute necessity. It's their only real path to decarbonization.
Okay, so we know what CCUS is, and we know why it's so vital for India. But how is this new funding actually going to make it happen, right? How do you take something that works in a lab and turn it into a real-world, factory-scale solution?
So a lot of groundbreaking ideas face this problem with a fantastic name: the Innovation Valley of Death. It's where technology works perfectly in a safe, controlled lab, but the money and the risk involved in testing it in a real factory are just too high. And that is exactly the gap this 20,000 crore fund is designed to bridge. It's the critical cash injection that de-risks that big jump from a small pilot to a massive commercial-scale operation.
And the scale we're talking about here is serious. As Professor Vikram Vishal from IIT Bombay puts it, to make any kind of real difference, these projects need to be handling hundreds of tons of CO2 every single day. This funding is what turns that kind of ambition into a concrete possibility.
And if you look at this timeline, you can see this huge investment didn't just come out of nowhere. It's actually the latest, biggest step in a very deliberate national strategy. It all started with that net zero pledge back in 2021, which was followed by a detailed R&D plan. And now we have the serious financial muscle to actually put that plan into action. Now, obviously, the main goal here is all about the climate. But the benefits of this big push go way beyond just cutting emissions. There's a very real, very tangible economic payoff for India's industries and, frankly, for its standing on the world stage.
Look, for key sectors like steel and cement, having a lower carbon footprint isn't just good for the planet anymore. It's just smart business.
A lot of major export markets, especially the European Union, are bringing in carbon tariffs. You might have heard of the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM. So by using CCUS, Indian companies can make cleaner products, which makes them more competitive and helps them avoid these really costly border taxes.
And you can bet industry leaders are taking notice. As Parth Jindal from the Cement Manufacturers Association points out, this kind of government support is absolutely critical. It lets a vital industry like cement invest in clean tech while still building all the infrastructure that a growing country like India needs. It's really about balancing that growth with responsibility. So when you look at it, this 20,000 crore rupee investment is so much more than just a line item in a budget. It is a huge strategic bet on a technology that's essential for India's core industries, it's crucial for its 2070 climate goals, and it could be a complete game changer for its economic future. Which leaves us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? Could this single investment be the catalyst that positions India as a dominant global leader in the clean industries of tomorrow?